Good morning, students. In last class, we have discussed that is the superclass, the reptilians, the aves, as well as the mammalian characters. Now, coming to the last one, that is the differences between the chordates and non-chordates. So, here now coming to the differences between chordates and non-chordates. So, here coming to the chordates. And non-chordates. So, here coming to the first character, here the presence of a notochord, the presence of a notochord or strong, stiff like rod, stiff like a vertebral column, long rod stiff like a structure, or vertebral column is presenting, or a vertebral column is present. Here in these the absence of the notochord, the absence of the notochord or the vertebral column is absenting, or the vertebral column is absent. So, here in chordates, in the pneumolendiating chordate means having a vertebral column is presenting, and non-chordates means here the absence of notochord or the vertebral column is not be presenting, then we can call that as a non-chordates. Next, coming to the second one, the presence of tubular narrow cord, that is here we will having the presence of dorsal hollow tubular narrow cord, presence of dorsal hollow tubular narrow cord. That means on the dorsal side of the that means on the dorsal side, here it consists of presence of dorsal hollow tubular narrow cord on the dorsal side. Here narrow cord is presenting. Here the second one in this in non-chordates, the presence of ventral narrow cord, presence of the ventral narrow cord. So, here in chordates will having a dorsal side, the narrow cord is presenting on the dorsal side, and on the non-chordates or invertebrates, here we can call them as the presence of a ventral narrow cord. Here chordates are also called as the vertebrates. Why means here presence of a vertebral column is presenting. So, here chordates are also called as the vertebrates. And non-chordates we can call them as an invertebrates. Invertebrates means here vertebral column is absenting. So due to the absence of vertebral column, we can call them as an invertebrates. Next, coming to the third point, that is the third one is the presence of pharyngeal gill slits. The presence of the presence of pharyngeal gill slits. Pharyngeal gill slits at some stage of life history. That means in some life history, here compulsory will having the pharyngeal gill slits are presenting. Here the gill slits may be present or may not be present. If they present, they are not arise from the pharynx regions. Gill slits may be. Third one, the pharyngeal gill slits are may be present or may be present or absent. If present, they not arise from the. If present, they not arise from a pharynx. They not arise from the pharynx. They not arise from the pharynx. That means from the pharynx these are not be arises. If they are, that means if they are, most of them does not having the pharyngeal gill slits, but if they are present means they are having the pharyngeal presence in some organisms, will be presence of the pharyngeal gill slits, but if they are not arise from the pharynx regions. So that is we can see in a non-chordates. Here the pharyngeal gill slits will be presenting and these are arise from the pharynx region at some stage. That means in embryonic stage or adult stage, these will be presenting at some stage of life history. These pharyngeal gill slits are presenting. That is taken place in the chordates. Now coming to the fourth point. Now for coming to the fourth one, here the presence of the ventral heart. Here the heart is presenting on the ventral. The heart is presenting. The heart is present. Heart is present on ventral side. Heart is present on ventral side. Here the fourth one is the heart is present. The heart is present on a dorsal side. On the dorsal side. On dorsal side, here it consists of in non-chordates on the dorsal side the heart is presenting. In vertebrates or chordates the heart is presenting on the ventral side. Next, here fifth one. Here the presence of a postal anal tail. Presence of the tail. Presence of a tail. Here the presence of the tail is the character of the vertebrates or chordates. Here that the tail which is presenting, it is produced from the postal anal region of the body. The tail is produced. Tail is produced. The tail is produced from postal postal anal region of the body. That means from the presence of the tail is the character feature of the vertebrates. The tail which is presenting, from where it is arising, means from the postal anal region. From the postal anal region, the tail is produced. So here we can use the word as the postal anal tail is presenting in the vertebrates. Why? Means the tail arises from the postal anal region. So due to the presence of arising of from the postal anal region, we can call as a postal anal tail part. And here the fifth one, if seen in vertebrates, here the presence or absence of the, that means tail is presence of tail is maybe presenting or absent. Presence of the presence of tail may be present or absent, and the tail is if present, tail is not produced. Present tail is not produced from a postal anal region. Not produced from postal anal region. That means here it is not arise from the postal anal region. From different other part of this it is arising. So if the tail may be presenting or may not be presenting. If the present means they are not arise from the postal anal tail. Next, if you see here the sixth one here, these are bilateral organisms. These are a bilateral symmetry, bilateral symmetrical organisms. Bilateral symmetrical organisms. That is, here all vertebrates will show a bilateral symmetry. Bilateral symmetry means when you cut the organism in only one vertical plane. When you cut the organism in only one vertical plane, we are able to producing two identical the hulls are produces. Then such type of the symmetry we can call as a bilateral symmetry. And here it shows here these are asymmetry. This shows asymmetry. Next, radial symmetry, radial and radial, biradial, and also the bilateral symmetrical organisms. Bilateral symmetrical and organism. That means here it shows asymmetry. When you cut the organism, here we cannot able to produce two identical hulls cannot be producing. Then we can call as asymmetrical. And radial, when you cut the organism in any vertical plane along the central axis, we can able to produce two identical hulls are producing. Then we can call as radial symmetry. And biradial, here biradial means here it shows bilateral as well as radial symmetry will take place. And some will show a bilateral symmetry. Bilateral means when you cut the organism in only one vertical plane, we are able to producing two identical the hulls are produces. Then we can call that as a bilateral symmetry. That means in non-chordates or invertebrates will shows asymmetry, a radial symmetry, a biradial symmetry as well as a bilateral symmetry. But here chordates will shows only a bilateral symmetry. In only one vertical plane when you cut, here we are able to get two identical halves are produces. So such type we called as a bilateral symmetry taken place in a chordates. In non-chordates, here it shows asymmetrical, radial, biradial as well as bilateral symmetrical will be shown. Next, here coming to the seventh one. Here seventh one will shows these are that means chordates. These are the triploblastic organisms. These are triploblastic and organisms. That means here triploblastic means three germ layers. Three germ layers. The three germ layers are outer ectoderm, middle mesoderm, and inner endoderm. So here having three germ layers, that means in all chordates are vertebrates which are presenting, will having three germ layers are presenting, such as outer ectoderm, a middle mesoderm, and also in inner and endoderm also. Already we know that here will having three germ layers. Will be three germ layers are presenting. This is outer ectoderm, middle mesoderm, and inner endoderm. So these are the three germ layers where we'll having an outer ectoderm, a middle mesoderm, and inner and endoderm will be presenting. But here in a non-chordates, these are diploblastic and also the triploblastic organisms. So here we'll show us two type of nature. One is either it showing the two germ layers, outer ectoderm and inner and endoderm. So in between we'll having the mesogly, a non-gelatinous substance is presenting in a diploblastic. In a diploblastic, here it shows outer ectoderm and inner endoderm. In between outer ectoderm and inner endoderm will consist of a non-gelatinous substance is presenting. That non-gelatinous substance we can call as the mesogly, where they are presenting in a diploblastic and organisms. Here these are diploblastic. So here we will having two germ layers only, outer ectoderm and inner endoderm. In between we will having a non-gelatinous layer is presenting that we can call as a mesogly, and some will shows also the triploblastic, that is having three germ layers, an outer ectoderm, a middle mesoderm, and inner and endoderm. So these are the two types of, that is having that is the triploblastic chordates are triploblastic and non-chordates are diploblastic, as well as the triploblastic in nature. Next, last one, if you see these are eucoelomates. These are an eucoelomates. These are an eucoelomates. Eucoelomates means we know that we'll having the alimentary canal between body wall and the alimentary canal will having the so here we will having between outer ectoderm, that means here it is alimentary canal, it is a body wall, and it is alimentary canal, and this is a coelom. So here the body cavity, a true body cavity is presenting between the body wall and the alimentary canal. So we can call them as an eucoelomates. And here, if you come here in these non-chordates, these are an acoelomates, and next one is pseudocoelomates, and the eucoelomates. So these are the three types where we are having an acoelomates. Acoelomates means your coelom, body cavity, is completely absent between a body wall and alimentary canal. And pseudocoelomates, it look like the cavity, but it is not surrounded by a pseudocoelomic, it is not surrounded by coelomic and epithelial cells, but it look like, so we can call them as pseudocoelomates. And the eucoelomates, we are having a true cavity is presenting between the body wall and the alimentary canal. So we are having an eucoelomate. So your non-chordates are an acoelomates, there may be acoelomates. Example, we can say as the platyhelminthes and aschelminthes, acoelomates, platyhelminthes, and pseudocoelomates, aschelminthes, and eucoelomates will start with Annelida to the hemichordates. So they will show us here we will having an eucoelomates, we will having three type of coeloms, that is acoelomate, pseudocoelomate, and eucoelomates. But here the chordates or vertebrates are having only one type. Here a body cavity is truly a body cavity is presenting. So we can call them as all vertebrates or chordates are an eucoelomates having a true body cavity is presenting between the body wall and the alimentary canal. So these are the differences between the chordates as well as non-chordates, or otherwise we can call them as the vertebrates as well as an invertebrates. Here chordates are also called as vertebrates due to the presence of a rod, a stiff-like structure vertebral column is presenting. Due to this we can call them as vertebrates. Invertebrates, here a rod stiff-like support is not be presenting, our vertebral column is completely and absenting is taken place. So due to the absence of vertebral column, we can call them as a non-chordates or an invertebrates. So these are the various differences where it takes place between the vertebrates as well as an invertebrates, as chordates are and non-chordates. So this is the topic of an animal kingdom. Next. Next we are going into the next class, that is in the next topic, that is we can discuss it now, that is as the animal tissues. So what are that we will discuss now. Next, coming to the animal tissues. So here animal tissues, already we know that we have studied the invertebrates as well as the vertebrates. So here we have studied various types of that is cellular organization, next organ system, organ grade of organization, organ system a grade of organization, and a tissue grade of organization, that is a cellular, tissue, organ and organ system grade of organizations we have studied, and from these we have studied the various phylums from a poriferans to the mammalians. We have studied the characteristic features as well as their classes which are presenting in this animal kingdom. Now coming to the animal tissues. In animal tissues, in animals the highest, that means in animals here it shows the multicellularity. Here in all animals shows the multicellularity. A multicellularity. What is cellularity? That means here the multicellularity means here it shows all organisms are a multicellular organisms. That means here it shows the organism having more than one cells are presenting. So due to the presence of more than one cells, so these type of organisms are called them as a multicellularity. So here a multicellularity will shows here the organisms which are having here it shows the fundamental will shows here the tissues are presenting the presence of the tissues. So here the tissues, what are the tissues means here it shows these are the cells. That means a group of cells, that is a group of similar or dissimilar cells but showing a specific function. That means a common function is showing, then such type of cells are called them as tissues. So here tissues means here it showing a cellularity. That means here will shows what are the tissues means here a group of similar or dissimilar cells, so that means a group of similar or dissimilar cells shows a common function or a specific a common function it shows, then we can call that as the tissues. That means here it showing a common specific function will be performed. So due to this performing of a specific function, these organisms or these cells we can call them as tissues, where will having a similar or dissimilar. That means the shape, the structure of the cells will be either a similar or a dissimilar, but here it's showing a common function or a specific function is performing. So due to this performing of a specific function, these are called them as tissues. And here we know that the studying of the tissues, here the studying of tissues is called as a histology. We can call that as a histology. That means studying of the tissues. It is a branch of a biology which deals with the study of tissues. So here studying of tissues, that tissues, studying about the tissues, here we can call that as the histology. That means here it is a branch of a biology which deals with the study of various types of tissues. Already we know that there are four fundamental tissues are presenting in an animals. So that four fundamental tissues which are studying about the studying of these tissues, we can call that as the histology. Here it is produced, it is developed by the French biologist, that is called as Bichat. The scientist called as the Bichat. Bichat is a scientist where he called as the father of histology. The father of histology. We can call that as the father of histology. Who is father of histology means Bichat is a father of a histology, where we will study about detailed structures of the tissues. So here structures which giving, we can call them as tissues, where we will show similar and dissimilar cells shows a common function or a specific functions. And here these tissues will perform the structures of the same structure will be performing to form an organs. So here the tissues will develop into an organs. That means here we will having the same structure. The structure is the same and perform and specific and performs the function of, so we can call them as the organs, and these organs which are presenting, these organs will form a definite the systems. That means the structurally they are producing a different organs will perform a different systems, interdependence of different organ systems we can call as an organ systems. That means here interdependence of dependency of an organs to form an organ system. So here this organ system will perform the specific functions in an organism, where to form organ system will perform the specific function in an organism. So here the organism we can say as organ level, that is organism level, how we can say means here we will having similarities, that means the sum total of varieties of all organ systems performing the function to form an organ system level. Here will forms an organ system levels or formation, where here it shows the sum total of variety of organ systems to form then organism level. That means here organism level is the highest level, it is the highest level. That means here in this will having which is the highest level means which is the highest level means here it shows the organ, here that organism level here organism level is the highest level. So here it shows the highest level is the an organ system, where here it shows the sum total of all variety of organ system give rise to an organism, where this organism is the highest level of an organizations. So here from tissues it develops and forms an organism, where here it shows organs and organ system grade level of organizations are performing and performs all the functions are performed by the organ systems. So here basic are the tissues. So here there are in our body in animals there are 4 fundamental tissues are forming. From these tissues it develops into organs, from organs to the organ system, where it develops into an organism level of an grade of or structural organization will be produces. So what are these now will be discussed. So now coming to this, how these are formations are taken place. So here it takes place from here how the organization is taken place means here it takes place first the atoms it forms into molecules will forms into cells forms into tissues forms into the organs to the organ system from organ system here it shows the organism. So from organism here it takes place, from the organism it takes place the ecosystem, that is here it takes place from organism population to the an ecosystem to the biosphere. These will be taken place later. So here the first are the atoms are forms, the atoms are combined together to form molecules, the molecules are combined to form a cells. So here atoms and molecules, here it shows that these are the inorganic, that is these are lifeless cells. These are lifeless cells. Life is not be presenting. And from cells, here it starts the life containing life organisms, that means life consisting. Here the cells, a group of cells are combined together form a tissues. From tissues, a group of tissues are combined to form an organs, and a group of organs are combined to form an organ system, a group of organ systems to form an organism. So here these will show an organism is the highest level of structural organization, where here it shows the organism is an highest level, and the lowest level is the cell, that is life, and non-cells, here the atoms are the lowest level of categories. And here these which are presenting, that means here we know that how these are formed means are here how these will be able to structure to form means here organs and organ systems are forming. How these organs and organ systems are formed, we have to know a general how the tissues are formed to form, how the tissues are helpful to formation of an organs. So in our animals here will having the four fundamental tissues are presenting, four fundamental tissues. So here we know that here which is the first phylum, consisting of four fundamental tissues means already we have discussed in invertebrates, in which phylum will having the most, that is four fundamental tissues are presenting means what are that? We have to know that is we know that that is exactly we can know that is coelentrates. Here the first phylum, it is the first phylum, consisting of the four fundamental tissues. So that is we can call that as coelentrates. Coelentrates, or otherwise we can call them as cnidarians. Why we can call them as cnidarians means will having a specialized cells are presenting, that specialized cells we can call them as stinging cells. These stinging cells will consist of pneumatoblast cells. So due to this we can call them as cnidarians or coelentrates. We are having a coelom means cavity, entron means intestine, that means it consists of a cavity like intestine is presenting. So these organisms we can call as coelentrates. So here coelentrates are the first phylum, where here it consists of four fundamental tissues are presenting. That means in animals the four fundamental tissues, which is the first phylum, will consist of the four fundamental tissues, or means that is we can call that as coelentrates. So here what are that four fundamental tissues means we know that the four fundamental tissues, the first one is an epithelial, tissues. First one is an epithelial tissues, and the second one is a connective tissues. The first one is epithelial tissues. The second one is a connective tissue, and the third one is the muscular tissues. The third one is the muscular tissue, and the last one is the fourth one is the nervous tissues. The fourth one is the nervous tissue. So these are the four fundamental tissues. What are that four fundamental means? First one is epithelial tissues, a connective tissues, and muscular tissues, and the nervous tissues. So these are the 4 fundamental tissues which are present in an animals, where here it starts with from coelentrates, from coelentrates to the up to a chordates will having 4 fundamental tissues are presenting. So that tissues will study, that is the animal tissues. So here we will having the 4 fundamental tissues are presenting. These will be discussed. That means these are the 4 fundamental tissues which is about the introduction where we can take in place. So here the organs and organ systems, the similar organs and organ systems are forming in an organism, but here it shows the similarity of tissues. From tissues only, here it shows the organs and organ systems. So how these tissues are forming to form organs and organ systems? So that 4 fundamental tissues are the epithelial, the connective, the muscular, as well as the nervous tissues. So these are the 4 fundamental, basic fundamental tissues which are present in an organisms. So in a next class we will discuss the one by one in the next classes, that is epithelial, connective, muscular, as well as the nervous tissues. One by one we will discuss in the next classes. That means in next class we will discuss, firstly we will discuss about the epithelial tissues. Okay, thank you. So in next class we will discuss that is a first tissues, that is an epithelial tissues.